All right, Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom, Judith.
And we just are so grateful to be here again together to do as God has commanded, to observe the seventh-day Sabbath and to partake in this Seder meal, this meal we have together. And the Parashat for this week is called Baha'alotech, and it's entitled When You Set Up, and it's from Numbers 8, verse 1 through 12, verse 16. And in my Torah, it's divided into 4 sections, I believe. The first one is princely and priestly things, Numbers 8, 1 through 26. The second is the second Passover and the cloud, the silver trumpets, Numbers 9, verse 1 through chapter 10, verse 10. The third is of rebels and prophets, Numbers 10, 11 through chapter 11, 35. And then the fourth is of prophecy and punishment, Numbers 12, verse 1 through 16. And so, John, hold on a minute. Let me start us out. I'm a little off here. וידבר אדוני אל משה לאמור, דבר אל אהרון, ואמרת אליו בהעלותך את הנערות אל מות פני המנורה, יראו שבעת תנירות. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to Aaron and say to him, When you mount the lamps, let the 7 lamps give light at the front of the lampstand. John?
Psalm 127. Except the Lord builds the house, they labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord keep the city, the watchmen watch, but in vain. It is vain for you to rise up early, to sit up late, to eat the bread of sorrow. For so he giveth his beloved sheep. Lo, children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is his reward. As arrows are in the hands of a mighty man, so are children of the youth. Happy is the man that has his quiver full of them. They shall not be ashamed, but they shall speak with the enemies in the gate. This is the word of the Lord. Our Father in heaven, hallowed be your name. May your kingdom come. May your will be done. We give thanks to you, Lord God, for bringing us to this Shabbat, bringing us through a week of work to this time of rest and worship, the time to acknowledge your great hand and great work, to acknowledge the freedom that you have given us, and given us through Christ's death on the cross, giving us an example that we may follow and not be afraid, that we may emulate and not be discouraged. As our brethren the Jews were freed from Egypt, and you brought them out and led them through the desert, and made them free and gave them signs and wonders that they would follow. The generation of knowledge, as some have called them, for they were closer to you than any other generation. And we learned from them, and we give thanks because through them they preserved the Torah, and is the same as we study and learn today. So as their ancestors, as they worship and rest and study your word this day, we join with them and give thanks for the God who frees and the God who delivers. And it is in the Son's name and the Father's name we pray. Amen.
Okay.
Baha'u'llah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotze lechem means out thereof. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us bread from the earth.
I can check it.
That should be good. Thank you. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Berei pri hagafen. Blessed art thou, Lord our God, King of the universe, who gives us the fruit of the vine. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, Shalom. Shabbat, 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 Shabbat. Shalom.
Shabbat shalom, everybody, again.
Shabbat shalom.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. All right. That's a heavy dude. Wonder.
Start late.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, this Torah portion involves a lot, and as always, is full of detail, and so we'll start with the princely and priestly thing, Numbers 8, verse 1 through 26. And John, if you want to start us off with that,
Okay.
if you don't mind.
Okay. Numbers chapter 8.
Verse 1 through 26.
Okay. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto Aaron, and say unto him, When thou lightest the lamp, the 7 lamps shall give light over against the candlestick. And Aaron did so. He lighted the lamp thereof over against the candlesticks, as the Lord commanded Moses. And this work of the candlestick was of beaten gold, upon the shaft thereof, upon the flowers thereof, was beaten work, according unto the pattern which the Lord had showed Moses. So he made the candlesticks. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Take the Levites from among the children of Israel, and clean them, and thus shalt thou do unto them to cleanse them. Sprinkle water of purification upon them, and let them shave all their flesh, and let them wash their clothes, and to make themselves clean. Then let them take a young bull with his meat offering, even fine flour mingled with oil, and another young bullock shalt thou take for a sin offering. And thou shalt bring the Levites before the tabernacle of the congregation, and thou shalt gather the whole congregation of the children of Israel together, and thou shalt bring the Levites before the Lord. And the children of Israel shall put their hand upon the Levites. And Aaron shall offer the Levites before the Lord for a offering of the children of Israel, that they may execute the service of the Lord. And the Levites shall lay their hands upon the head of the bullock, and thou shalt offer the one for a sin offering, and the other for a burnt offering unto the Lord, to make an atonement for the Levite. And thou shalt set the Levites before Aaron, and before his son, and offer them for an offering unto the Lord. Thou shalt prepare the Levites from among the children of Israel, for the Levites shall be mine. And after that shall the Levites go in to do the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. And thou shalt clean them and offer them for an offering. And they are wholly given unto me from among the children of Israel, instead of such as open every womb, even indeed of the firstborn of all the children of Israel, have I taken them unto me. For all the firstborn of the children of Israel are mine, both man and beast. On the day that I smote every firstborn in the land of Egypt, I sanctified them for myself. And I have taken the Levites from all the firstborn of the children of Israel, and I have given the Levites as a gift to Aaron and to his sons, and to his sons from among the children of Israel, to do the service of the children of Israel in the tabernacle of the congregation, and to make an atonement for the children of Israel, that there be no plague among the children of Israel, when the children of Israel come nigh unto the sanctuary. And Moses and Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel did to the Levites according unto all that the Lord commanded Moses concerning the Levites. So did the children of Israel unto them. And the Levites were purified, and they washed their clothes, and Aaron offered them as an offering before the Lord, and Aaron made an atonement for them to cleanse them. And after that went the Levites in to do the service in the tabernacle of the congregation before Aaron. and before his sons, as the Lord has commanded Moses concerning the Levite, so did they unto them. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, This is it that begetteth unto the Levite, from 20 to 50 to 5 years old, and upward. They shall go in to wait upon the service of the tabernacle of the congregation. And from the age of 50 years they shall cease waiting upon the service thereof, and shall serve no more, but shall minister with their brethren in the tabernacle of the congregation, to keep the charge, and shall do no service. Thus and shall thou do unto the Levites touching their charge. As you are fond of saying, fairly straightforward, but there's one complication, not a complication, one interesting part. This has to do with dedicating Aaron and his sons and the Levite to the divine service of God in the tabernacle. So this has to do with the divine service. Somehow it doesn't sound like I'm saying it right, but they are in service to God. And two things that were interesting. Well, one thing, the thing that was most interesting was Aaron, when it said Moses gave him instruction in verse 3, and said, and Aaron did so. He lighted the lamps thereof over against the candlestick. Now this has to do with the temple, and later on we may see it later, the connection. But the reason this is here now is because something happens later. But this could have easily been put in the prior book in Leviticus, because that's where all the temple work was being done. Now this said that Aaron did what Moses told him. It's, you would have expected Aaron to do what Moses told him to do for God. But what the sages are saying, that Aaron did it with the enthusiasm, and he did it with commitment, he did it with passion that first day, and on the second day he did it with the same enthusiasm and the same passion. It never changed. He was so enthralled with doing this, his pattern never changed. It gave him as much excitement on the second day and the third day as it did on the first day. So that's what it means when he did so. He never changed. He always loved doing this service to God. And this is a lot of reality is here. This is part of living by the Word of God.
Yes.
When God tells you to do something, you do it. You're basically living by the Word of God. And this is another test. In fact, perhaps even all of Torah is a test. This is a test of them living, not just physically, but living spiritually, but living by God's Word. The other thing has to do with the purification. I thought that was kind of interesting. This bull didn't say the red heifer, but I think this alludes to the red heifer and the purification. But this was also in Leviticus. And but as I said, there's a tie-in to why this is here. God sanctified the firstborn to himself. But those are the points. I think those are the only points I wanted to make.
As you were reading, it dawned upon me that here God is setting up a priesthood to minister to him, and he's setting it up very specifically. It's not a haphazard or random thing. Maybe some things God is asking them to do, they may not understand it, but this is what God is requiring them to do in order to be able to minister to him in the tent of the meeting. So I can conclude that if someone says that they are ministering to God, and they aren't following these instructions, then they are not ordained. Well, God's not going to be pleased with them. You're going to take care of that?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm sorry. And there's a point I'm trying to make without being heavy-handed about it. But I'll just lay the point out, and you know, if we want to discuss it further, we can. But my point is, God has ordained the Levites. He says that he gives the Levites to Aaron in order to minister to him, and then he makes up specific rules about how they are to minister, the age they are when they are to minister, so on and so forth. But again, he's very specific. So my conclusion again is that if someone is ministering to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, if they are acting as a priesthood, they must follow these rules and regulations. Because if they don't, we have noted before that God, it's very dangerous not to follow the rules and regulations if you're going to be ministering to God. So that's the point I want to make. And you don't have to comment about it, but it's just, again, a conclusion. God gives all these instructions. He said, do it this way in order to minister to me. And again, I have to assume that if someone's not following these ordinances, number one, God's not going to be pleased. It could be dangerous for them, as we noted before, where the priest has to take special precautions to go into the tent of the meeting during Yom Kippur. Because if he doesn't, he could be struck down. So again, we're dealing with the ordinances of God and how to minister to him. And these things must be followed according to Torah. Okay? All right, we can move on. All right. The second part is from Numbers 9, verse 1 through chapter 10, verse 10, the second Passover, the cloud, and the silver trumpet. And it reads, the Lord spoke to Moses in the wilderness of Sinai on the first new moon of the second year following the Exodus in the land of Egypt, saying, let the Israelite people offer the Passover sacrifice at its set time. You shall offer it on the 14th day of this month at the twilight. At its set time you shall offer it in accordance with all its rules and rites. Moses instructed the Israelites to offer the Passover sacrifice. And they offered the Passover sacrifice in the first month on the 14th day of the month at twilight in the wilderness of Sinai. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses, so the Israelites did. But there were some men who were unclean by reason of a corpse, and could not offer that Passover sacrifice on that day. Appearing that same day before Moses and Aaron, those men said to them, unclean though we are by reason of a corpse, why must we be debarred from presenting the Lord's offering at its set time with the rest of the Israelites? Moses said to them, stand by and let me hear what instructions the Lord gives about you. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, speak to the Israelite people, saying, when any of you or of your posterity who are defiled by a corpse are on a long journey would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, they shall offer it in the second month on the 14th day of the month at twilight. They shall eat it with unleavened bread and bitter herbs, and shall not leave any of it over until morning. They shall not break a bone of it. They shall offer it in strict accord with the law of the Passover sacrifice. But if a man who is clean and not on a journey refrains from offering the Passover sacrifice, that person shall be cut off from his kin, For he did not present the Lord's offering at its set time, that man shall bear his guilt. And when a stranger who resides with you would offer a Passover sacrifice to the Lord, he must offer it in accordance with the rules and rites of the Passover sacrifice. There shall be one law for you, whether stranger or citizen of the country. On that day that the tabernacle was set up, the cloud covered the tabernacle, the tent of the pact, and in the evening it rested over the tabernacle in the likeness of fire until morning. It was always so. The cloud covered it, appearing as fire by night. And whenever the cloud lifted from the tent, the Israelites would set out accordingly at the spot where the cloud settled. There the Israelites would make camp. On a sign from the Lord, the Israelites broke camp, and on a sign from the Lord they made camp. They remained encamped as long as the cloud stayed over the tabernacle. When the cloud lingered over the tabernacle, many days the Israelites observed the Lord's mandate and did not journey on. At such times as the cloud rested over the tabernacle, for about a few days they remained encamped on a sign from the Lord, and broke camp on a sign from the Lord. And at such times as the cloud stayed from the evening until morning, they broke camp as soon as the cloud lifted in the morning, day or night. Whenever the cloud lifted, they would break camp. Whether it was 2 days or a month or a year or however long the cloud lingered over the tabernacle, the Israelites remained encamped and did not set out. Only when it lifted did they break camp. On a sign from the Lord they made camp, and on a sign from the Lord they broke camp. They observed the Lord's mandate at the Lord's bidding through Moses. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Have 2 silver trumpets made. Make one of them hammered work. They shall serve you to summon the community, and to set the divisions in motion. When both are blown in long blasts, the whole community shall assemble before you at the entrance of the tent of meeting. And if only one is blown, the chieftain heads of Israel's contingents shall assemble before you. But when you sound short blasts, the divisions encamped on the east shall move forward. And when you sound short blasts of a second time, those encamped on the south shall move forward. Thus short blasts shall be blown for setting them in motion, while to convoke the congregation you shall blow long blasts, for not short ones. The trumpet shall be blown by Aaron's sons, the priests. This shall be for you an institution for all time throughout the ages. When you are at war in your own land against an aggressor who attacks you, you shall sound short blasts of the trumpets, that you may be remembered before the Lord your God, and be delivered from your enemies. And your joyous occasions, your fixed festivals and new moons, days, you shall sound the trumpet over your burnt offerings and your sacrifices of well-being. They shall be a reminder of you before the Lord your God. I, the Lord, am your God. And this, again, is giving instructions for what the Israelites are to do. Specifically, one of the things is about the Passover, when someone who has handled a dead body or come in contact with one, and they were not able to do the Passover, it gave instructions for when they could do the Passover. And it is noted that at the regular times, and if someone does not do the Passover, he shall be cut off from, the person shall be cut off from his kin for not doing it when they have an opportunity to do it. Also, we go on and it tells about the cloud and about how the Israelites are to break camp and to follow the clouds. In our short version of this that we recorded, I reminded John that we need to move when God says move. And John was saying it's hard to tell when God says move. The Israelites had the cloud, right, and so they knew when to move. But it behooves us to try and, get on our knees and find out when to move, because we don't want to move when God doesn't say move. We don't want to be without God. And so this goes on, and it all is very clear about what God requires of us. It's very clear about how he wants Israel to move forward in the wilderness. And the trumpet is one of the instruments that they're going to be using in order to summon Israel and in order to get them moving, whether it be for war or to come to the tent of the meeting. And in verse 14, it says again that one thing we have to remind ourselves, whether we be Jew or Gentile, it says there's one law for Israel and the stranger. There is no different law. This is God's law right here for anybody that chooses to accept it and to do it. That's it for right now. I just hurried through that. I know you have a lot more, John, in terms of.
Well, I don't know if I'd say a lot more,
Mm-hmm.
but the thing I wanted to talk about was you talked about briefly, but I think it's a little bit deeper than that.
Mm-hmm.
And one teacher said, do you think, well, what's your guess as to the dead bodies they were actually touching? Whose dead body? Well, this was the first Passover. So this was Aaron's two sons, Nadab and Abihu. So this is what they're thinking was their bodies they had to take out. And what happened, because they were ordered to take the bodies out, they were cut off. And they felt bad. They said, well, we are part of the community.
Right.
And by touching the dead body, they were not part of the community. It says, no. This isn't done because of our doing. This was something that had to be done. And they felt less dispossessed or not part of the community or outside the community. And they desperately wanted to feel, or they wanted to be part of the community that participated. So they went to Moses. And Moses didn't have an answer. He went to God. And what God created was something new. He created a new Passover for them to participate in. It was 1 month later. But they had this yearning that if they didn't participate in the Passover, they were not part of the community of Israel. Right. And they wanted desperately to be part of the community of Israel. So what? God created something new. They got a new Passover. An additional Passover. Well, something new. An additional Passover. And this will come into contrast with something else I'm expecting to come up soon.
Right. Okay.
What else do I have here? I can't remember. Same for the stranger. Oh, yes. This also, when they when the cloud lifted, they moved. Some translators or teachers say that basically translate at the mouth of God or at the bidding of God they moved. And that goes back to what we talked about in the overview, I think, is that they lived, or they were being instructed by the word of God, the mouth of God. Going back to the old expression, the proverb, man does not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. And what came from the mouth of God was for them to move or not move. And they were given signs. They couldn't miss those signs. We can't. I don't think ours are that good. You say that they are, but
they still.
I don't know.
My conclusion is that I don't think God would. I think God would present Himself in the same way He presented Himself to Israel. He doesn't want us to miss Him, so we have to pay attention. I think one of the ways that we pay attention is by celebrating the 7th-day Sabbath. Because first of all, we're right here where He says to be. On the 7th day, it's holy, so you're to stop all your work and stop all your activities, and you wait for Him. You wait for Him because you prepared all your food, and you're discussing the and here in this present day we're discussing the Torah portion, and we're doing that. So in a sense, what's that? Oh, so we're doing everything that we're looking for his sign. I think that's part of knowing what he says. Because if we weren't looking for it, if we hadn't stopped our work, as he said, we stopped the work and we're waiting to hear from him.
Okay.
So I think we will know, because we're paying attention. Because as far as the cloud was concerned, yes, when the cloud moved, they had to do it. But what did they also do? They blew the trumpet, and so they knew, okay, it's time to set out. So I believe God, if we're paying attention, we will hear God when he says to move and to go out. So that's why I'm convinced, yes, God will show us. God will let us know when it's time for us to go, if we're paying attention. And again, I can't say it enough. Part of that paying attention, we start at square one. When he says, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy, thou shalt do no work. You're not doing any work. You're sitting here, you're waiting to hear for his voice. If you were working and doing your regular activities, you can't hear from him. But here we are, we're waiting to hear from him, and he will let us know. And it probably is going to be on a Shabbat, because he has our attention, and we're waiting to hear from him to tell us what to do, when to move next. Barry, it seemed like you wanted to say something. You're okay. So yes, we're waiting to hear from him. And also, I thought it was interesting. It says it was talking about the trumpet being an institution for all time, and when you are at war in your own land against the aggressor who attacks you, you shall sound short blast of trumpets, that you may be remembered before the Lord your God and be delivered from your enemies. So it's almost like it's saying they got to blow the trumpet in order to arouse God from his throne of grace in mercy to go to war for you. You sound that trumpet. I thought that was interesting. Okay. All right. We're going to take a short break here, and then we'll go on to of rebels and prophets, Numbers 10, verse 11 through chapter 11, verse 35. And I'm just going to get you ready right now, Barry. Our last part is entitled of prophets and punishments, and that's Numbers 12, verse 1 through 16. We'll have you read that. That's a short one. Right. Okay, we're going to take a short break right now. Reading of rebels and prophets. And in the second year, on the 12th day of the second month, the Lord of the cloud lifted from the tabernacle of the pact, and the Israelites set out on their journey from the wilderness of Sinai. The cloud came to rest in the wilderness of Paran. When the march was to begin at the Lord's bidding through Moses, the first standard to set out troop by troop was the division of Judah. In the command of its troop was Nachshon, son of Amminadab. And in the command of the tribal troop of Issachar, Nethanel, son of Zuar. And in command of the tribal troop of Zebulon, Eliab, son of Helon. Then the tabernacle would be taken apart, and the Gershonites and the Merarites who carried the tabernacle would set out. The next standard to set out, troop by troop, was the division of Reuben. In the command of its troop was Elazar, son of Shedeur. In command of the tribal troop of Simeon, Shelumiel, son of Zurishdadai. And in command of the tribal troop of Gad, Eliasaph, son of Duel. Then the Kohathites who carried the sacred objects would set out. And by the time they arrived, the tabernacle would be set up again. The next standard to set out, troop by troop, was the division of Ephraim. In command of its troop was Elishama, son of Amihud. In command of the tribal troop of Manasseh, Gamaliel, son of Padahzur. And in command of the tribal troop of Benjamin, Abidan, son of Gidoni. Then as the rear guard of all the divisions, the standard of divisions of Dan would set out, troop by troop. In command of his troop was Ahizer, son of Ammishaddai. In command of the tribal troop of Asher, Pagael, son of Achran. And in command of the tribal troop of Naphtali, Ahira, son of Enan. Such was the Israelites' order of march, as they marched troop by troop. Moses says to Obab, son of Ruel, the Midianite, Moses' father-in-law, "We are setting out for the place of which the Lord has said, I will give it to you. Come with us, and we will be generous with you, for the Lord has promised to be generous to Israel." "I will not go," he replied to him, "but will return to my native land." He said, "Please do not leave us, inasmuch as you know where we should camp in the wilderness and can be our guide. So if you come with us, we will extend to you the same bounty that the Lord grants us." They marched from the mountain of the Lord a distance of 3 days. The ark of the covenant of the Lord traveled in front of them on that 3 days' journey to seek out a resting place for them. And the Lord's cloud kept above them by day as they moved on from camp. When the ark was to set out, Moses would say, "Advance, O Lord, may your enemies be scattered, and may your foes flee before you." And when it halted, he would say, "Return, O Lord, you who are Israel's myriads of thousands." The people took to complaining bitterly before the Lord. The Lord heard and was incensed. A fire of the Lord broke out among them, ravaging the outskirts of the camp. The people cried out to Moses. Moses prayed to the Lord, and the fire died down. That place was named Teberach, because a fire of the Lord had broken out against them. The riffraff in their midst felt a gluttonous craving, and the Israelites moreover wept and said, "If only we had meat to eat. We remember the fish that we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. Now our gullets are shriveled. There is nothing at all, nothing but this manna to look to." Now the manna was like coriander seed, and in color it was like bedulum. The people would go about and gather it, grind it between the millstones, or pound it into a mortar, boil it in a pot, and make it into cakes. It tasted like rich cream. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall upon it. Moses heard the people weeping, every clan apart, each person at the entrance of his tent. The Lord was very angry, and Moses was distressed. And Moses said to the Lord, "Why have you dealt ill with your servant? And why have I not enjoyed your favor that you have laid the burden of all this people upon me? Did I conceive all these people? Did I bear them that you should say to me, carry them in your bosom, as a nurse carries an infant to the land that you have promised on oath to their fathers? Where am I to get meat to give to all these people, when they whine before me and say, 'Give us meat to eat'? I cannot carry all these people by myself, for it is too much for me. If you would deal thus with me, kill me rather, I beg you, and let me see no more of my wretchedness." Then the Lord said to Moses, "Gather for me 70 of Israel's elders, of whom you have experience as elders and officers of the people, and bring them to the tent of the meeting, and let them take their place with you. And I will come down and speak with you there, and I will draw upon the spirit that is in you, and will put it upon them, and they shall share the burden of the people with you, and you shall not bear it alone. And say to the people, 'Be ready, for tomorrow you shall eat meat, for you have kept whining before the Lord, and saying, If only we had meat to eat. Indeed, we were better off in Egypt.' The Lord will give you meat, and you shall eat. You shall eat not 1 day, not 2, not even 5 days, or 10, or 20, but a whole month, until it comes out of your nostril and becomes loathsome to you. For you have rejected the Lord who is among you by whining before him and saying, Oh, why did we ever leave Egypt? But Moses said, the people who are with me number 600,000 men. Yet you say, I will give them enough meat to eat for a whole month? Could enough flocks and herds be slaughtered to suffice them? Or could all the flesh of the sea be gathered for them to suffice them? And the Lord answered Moses, is there a limit to the Lord's power? You shall soon see whether what I have said happens to you or not. Moses went out and reported the words of the Lord to the people. He gathered 70 of the people's elders and stationed them around the tent. Then the Lord came down in a cloud and spoke to him. He drew upon the spirit that was in him and put it upon the 70 elders. And when the spirit rested on them, they spoke in ecstasy, but did not continue. 2 men, one named Eldad and the other Medad, had remained in the camp. Yet the spirit rested upon them. They were among those recorded, but they had not gone out to the tent, and they spoke in ecstasy in the camp. A youth ran out and told Moses, Eldad and Medad are acting the prophet in the camp. And Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' attendant from his youth, spoke up and said, my lord Moses, restrain them. But Moses said to him, are you wrought up on my account? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets, that the Lord put his spirit upon them. Moses then re-entered the camp, together with the elders of Israel. A wind from the Lord started up, swept quail from the sea, and strewed them over the camp, about a day's journey on this side, and about a day's journey on that side, all around the camp, and some 2 cubits deep in the ground. The people sat together in quail all that day and night, and all the next day. Even he who gathered least had 10 homers, and they spread them out all around the camp. The meat was still between their teeth, not yet chewed, when the anger of the Lord blazed forth against the people. And the Lord struck the people with a very severe plague. The plague was named Kibroth Hattaavah, because the people who had the craving were buried there. Then the people set out from Kibroth Hattaavah, from Hazeroth. One of the things I like to emphasize, because a lot of times the Torah is straightforward, but at the same time there is a deeper meaning here. Here we have the people bemoaning the fact that they aren't eating like they were in Egypt. They don't have the things that they had in Egypt, and they name all these luscious things that they had in Egypt.
And they ate for free.
Yes. And where have we heard this before? That this eating thing is not new. Because of an apple, we'll say, in the Garden of Eden, man sinned. And here we have, again, food being a part of the sinning. And so, again, there's a number of issues going on here, but again, it comes down to food. Now, in verse, hold on, let me finish this thought. There you go. In verse 5, let me just make sure which one. Verse 5, let me see, let me make sure it's the right chapter. Verse, yeah, it's verse of chapter 11, I think. Hold on a minute. Yeah, it's 11:5, and in my commentary, and it may not. Oh, yes, in this particular commentary, I'm going to read it to you. In this comment, it says an exaggerated expression, meaning because in 5 they say we remember the fish that we used to eat free in Egypt, the cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. And this from my commentary, it says an exaggerated expression, meaning that it costs very little. The Israelites here apparently describe the diet of the Egyptian working class. While the cry is ostensibly for meat only, it is for variety also. In a Talmudic discussion, it is suggested that the remembrance of Egypt's delicacy was a euphemism for the sexual license in which they had indulged. So there was more going on here. Again, that, well, they're lusting for something. And we see oftentimes in the whole of Torah when that food is always part of the sinning. It could be a part of celebration too, but in this sense, it's something that they've done very bad, because God punishes them at the Kibroth Hattava. John, go ahead.
Yeah, the one thing, I'm not sure where I would start. Let me start at the beginning. This part talking about the manna. And it really didn't occur to me until late in my study on this, and maybe one of the teachers mentioned it. What was manna? Manna was food from God's table. Mm-hmm. This was heavenly food. You don't get much better than
Not
from
at
God's
all.
table.
Not at all.
Now, what was also was spiritual food.
Mm-hmm.
And they were, it's not that, a couple of things going on with them in this food issue. One fellow seems to think that, well, yeah, they did eat the fish for free. Because, and I was thinking, well, the fishermen come in from their catch on the Nile, and they sort out the fish, say, okay, we can resell this one, this is too small, we just throw it away. So that, my thinking is they were scrounging to throw away fishes. Mm-hmm. So, but the problem is a couple of things going on here. Desire. Mm-hmm. They want the base things in life, and you mentioned one of them, sexual. Mm-hmm. They did not want to continue in this religious, in this moral lifestyle, divine lifestyle. Mm-hmm. They wanted to return to their sinful ways. Mm-hmm. And known the sinful ways they knew were in Egypt. So this is, did it come from, I wrote on top, lack of confidence? Maybe so. That was, I'm going to say, part of it. They were tired of, or afraid of living holy lives, following God. They were tired of that, or they were just too afraid, too scared to move to that next level up. And I can bash them all I want, but there's enough bashing around to get us too, or to get me too. Mm-hmm. And I compared them. They wanted to be separated from God, while the last group we were talking about, who touched this dead body, wanted to be part of the community, and that's why I think they're there. They didn't want to be part of God's community. Right. One of the teachers says they wanted so many things they really didn't know what they wanted. Mm-hmm. There was actually nothing on earth that was going to satisfy them.
No, that's exactly.
What they didn't want was to live a holy, moral life, moving up to the next level. And I think I made some other comments. I did mention that manna was holy food, the spiritual food.
Yes.
And some even say when they ate manna, it depends if they wanted it tastes like whatever they wanted it to taste
exactly.
like.
Exactly.
If they wanted strawberry and they ate manna,
it tasted like
strawberry. If they wanted steak, it tastes like steak.
Now that's a special kind of food to do that.
Right. So, but what they wanted, they didn't want that holy lifestyle. They didn't want to, they didn't want to be accountable and responsible. Right. So you just don't walk into the promised land easy. You go through suffering. You got to work at it. Exactly. It requires responsibility and it requires effort. And they didn't want to put forth the effort. If you're going to eat fish for free, you're not going to have any effort involved there. As I said earlier, many lessons could be learned from this chapter here, and most learned about the reality that we live in. And
well, God was offering them something in the manna. He was offering them something that, like you said, from the table of God. They rather eat from the table of the Egyptians as opposed to eating from the table of God, heavenly food.
Right.
was basically what manna is, heavenly
That's what it
food.
was. From God's table.
From God's table. They could eat but they had on the thing that came to my mind is a lot of times you'll hear people of varying backgrounds that said, "Oh, it was better back in such and such a time. It was better back in because we had da 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 da." But then we call that looking at the past through rose-colored glasses, because you may forget. Now there are lessons to be learned through hardship, but a lot of people, when they look at the past, don't remember the hardship. They remember the so-called good things, and I think that's what these riffraff were looking at in terms of their stay in Egypt. They forgot about slavery, that they were enslaved and had to work at the whims of the Egyptians. Forgot about that, and they were just thinking about the things they did that they didn't want to be a part of God's kingdom.
Yeah, they didn't remember, as it said, entering the land of promise is not without struggle. They forgot about all the struggles they had in Egypt. Struggle
for nothing. Struggle, well, they got nothing from it. Here they're struggling, but God says, at the end, I'm going to show you a land that's all your own, that's filled with milk and honey, and it's going to be theirs. And they don't have to be slaves anymore, except to God's law. They have to be, but again, they much rather be a slave to the Egyptians than to God.
Right. One other thing here, and that's, I guess they say, the biggest low point here, is when Moses cries out to God.
Yes.
When they just complained so much.
Yes.
And this was his low point. They said, well, Moses just didn't adjust to the people. He was just so far above them. His leadership style at this point was not compatible. Could he lead them out of Egypt? Oh yeah. And through the Red Sea? Yeah. But to get them to be focused on at one point.
Exactly.
It's hard, and it's hard to get people to see the purpose of it.
Yeah.
And that's what he didn't. If he failed in anything, that's what he failed at doing.
Well, to see the vision. Moses could see the vision. He could see them in the land. I think they couldn't see themselves there. They couldn't see it. But Moses could. That's the thing. I'm sure that must be a frustrating thing for prophets. The prophets of Israel who were pleading with the people, you know, that God, if you just follow after God, God will take care of your enemies. And that said Jeremiah was the weeping prophet because he could see God doing all this. If the Israelites would just follow God's law and say, you won't have to fight any enemy. God will do that for you. And I can imagine the frustration that Moses felt.
Well, that was, I think you got the key. The prophet leadership style Moses did not develop, because he didn't speak like Jeremiah or John the Baptist or the other prophet. He was a prophet, but he didn't speak that way to the people. Some describe
him as like the person that's trying to negotiate.
Yes, you're right. You're right. He is trying to negotiate. Yes.
One guy gave an example. Let's suppose you're sick, and you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, "Okay, I can give you a pill, but you know this pill isn't going to work if you don't start exercising and changing your diet. So it's up to you to take the pill, exercise, and do the diet." And it's hard to get a person to do that. Yet you can give them a pill and tell them, but it's hard to convince a person that they should take on some other areas of responsibility to do as well.
To see that vision.
Yeah, and Moses had a tough time doing that.
But I know in his frustration, this is one thing that I love what God said to him, and Moses was saying to God, he said, but Moses said, but the people who are with me number 600,000 men, yet you say, I will give them enough meat to eat for a whole month. Could enough flocks and herds be slaughtered to suffice them? Or could all the fish of the sea be gathered for them to suffice them? And the Lord said and answered Moses, is there a limit to the Lord's power? He answered him with a question. Is there a limit? And I'm sure it must have brought Moses back down to the reality that this is the God of the universe. He can do anything he wants. And he can provide anything he wants. And so I think I have to speak to myself a lot of times when you see situations and they look untenable, they look just impossible, but I'll have to remind myself with this, is there a limit to the Lord's power? I'll remind myself with the question God asked, is there a limit to the Lord's power?
Okay. Oh, one other thing I forgot to mention too. Those folks wanted meat to eat, but they had herds with them. And
so you would think that maybe it was a euphemism for
some sexual desire,
nastiness.
Yeah, they wanted.
Yes.
They wanted to return back to the animal. Hey, my goodness, dogs or animals want meat to eat. So yeah, they're just going back to their basic instincts, the base things, and going back to their sexual desire. Because I guess with this manna, this is just me talking, manna took away sexual desire.
Those thoughts.
And part of those thoughts as well. And what happened was, they said, if I eat this food, hey, I can get excited again. I can think those thoughts again.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Because whatever was in the manna didn't allow them to think about certain things.
Right. Right. That
all the stuff they wanted.
Yeah.
It allowed them to.
Oh my goodness.
To listen and behave the other way.
Yep. Exactly.
Wow.
Okay. And they didn't want any part of that pure living.
They didn't want any part of that manna. They want that other stuff. So that okay, I can see that. That's good. I like that. Thank you all for opening that up. That's again, yes. All right. Well, that's very deep.
Like a child don't want to do his homework.
Yeah.
He ready to go outside and play.
Yeah. Exactly. Exactly. Very deep. Okay. Now we're going to go with the last part, and the last part is a prophecy and punishment, and it's from Numbers 12th chapter, verse 1 through 16. Barry.
And Miriam and Aaron spake against Moses because of the Ephraim woman, in whom he had married, for he married an Ephraim woman. And they said, had the Lord indeed spoken only by Moses, had he not spoken also by us? And the Lord heard it. Now the man Moses was very meek above all the men which were upon the face of the earth. And the Lord spake suddenly unto Moses, and unto Aaron, and unto Miriam, come out ye three unto the tabernacle of the congregation. And they three came out. And the Lord came down in a pillar of a cloud, and stood in the door of the tabernacle, and called Aaron and Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I the Lord will make myself unknown.
Excuse me.
Unknown unto him in a vision, and speak unto him in the dream. My servant Moses is not so, who is faithful in my house. With him will I speak mouth to mouth, even apparently, and not in the dark speeches, and the simulated of the Lord shall he behold. Wherefore then we ye not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And the anger of the Lord was kindled against them, and he departed. And the cloud departed from the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprosy, white as snow. And Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was a leprosy. And Aaron said unto Moses, Alas, my Lord, I beseech thee, lay not the sin upon us, wherein we have done foolishly, and wherein we have sinned. Let her not be as one dead, of whom the flesh has consumed, when he cometh out of his mother's womb. And Moses cried unto the Lord, saying, Heal her now, O Lord, O God, I beseech thee. And the Lord said unto Moses, If her father had but spit in her face, should she not be ashamed? 7 days, let her be shut out from the camp 7 days, and after that let her be received in again. And Miriam was shut out from the camp 7 days, and the people journeyed not till Miriam was brought in again. And afterwards the people removed from Hazarah and pitched in the wilderness of Paran.
Okay.
You know, the couple of things that strike me, and maybe I'm not sure what I'm going to do it. But since the crime that Miriam and Aaron had done was slander, but only she was struck with leprosy, and that part I can't figure out. Maybe she was the instigator, and Aaron, trying to seek peace, will probably just go along with it. There's something different that's happening here that wasn't in the last chapter. When the people were complaining, and I failed to mention it. Complaining is, some people don't see it as a big issue, because you won't go to jail for complaining. You know, they don't see it that big of an issue. But yet slander, the slander that Miriam did, she was leprous. She had to go outside the camp, which you would think slander would be worse than what they did. But but what was happening here was that Miriam was being punished for slandering Moses.
And almost lost her life for it.
Huh?
She almost lost her life for it.
Yeah, she didn't go in the land, and yeah, that is true. That is true. Was it jealousy? Well, maybe it was a little jealous.
Maybe.
I don't know. She saved. I don't know. She saved his life. She put him in the Nile. And talked to Pharaoh's daughter.
Yeah,
so,
she did.
She played an integral role. She was the older sister.
And she saw him in a power position.
Yeah.
And she stayed back.
Yeah. Can you say that?
Like where she was, and said, "Well, look at him. I think he's Mr. Big Shot."
Yeah. And God said He is.
Yeah, God did. God, He really did. He said, you know, because He said, prophets, He said, they see stuff in dreams and visions, but I speak mouth to mouth.
But she didn't realize that God, she had a big part of Moses being who he is.
Yes. And that should have been enough for him.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And I guess the important people, this euphemism that says stay in your lane, everybody is not meant to do everything. Everybody has a job to do. Just make sure you do your job, and don't worry about somebody else's job or somebody else's blessing. Well, you know, if they're blessed with $1 million, that's theirs. You don't know what God's going to bless you with. Maybe He chooses not to bless you with $1 million, but maybe He blesses you with something far greater. So we all just need to stay in our lane and receive what God has for us and be happy and thankful for it. But God, I think God kind of he kind of cleared it up for her, that Moses was the guy.
She felt that she should be getting the same blessing as Moses.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't work out that way.
Different people have different plans in the
Yes,
world.
you better believe it.
Exactly. Just
Neither-
like the Levites, they were certain groups were responsible for certain areas of the temple,
Yes,
and they were all treated equal.
yes.
But we each have our different roles to play.
Yes, we do. And each is important. As Mary, we were talking about Mary, had she not done what she did in order to make sure Moses was taken care of and found by the
That would have been
Pharaoh's daughter, yeah, would have been enough. So she did. Hey,
That
you
was
could
a big
say
thing.
that's right. And
She
so
did
she
something.
should have been happy with that.
She don't sit that way.
Yeah. Because it said never envy someone else's blessing. You don't know what they had to do in order to get there.
Oh, yeah.
You never envy anybody. You never do that. You just don't know. You don't know the sorrow or the whatever the people. And like with Moses, I'm sure, yeah, they may have saw his position as being an enviable position, but he had 600-some-thousand men and women and children additionally to lead into the promised land. It was such a big job that he didn't get into the promised land because he got a little mad. His temper got the best of him. So it wasn't an easy job to get all those people into the promised land. So they shouldn't have envied Moses at all. No, I don't envy him. Saying no, say it. So anything else?
No, that's it for me.
Okay, we had a good lesson, and we must remember, and I just want to reiterate, and to those who listen to us, that again, this is a very the 7th-day Sabbath, and what we're doing here is very important. It, number one, it lets us know the mind of God and what God expects from us and what we need to do. It also lays out a pattern of what we need to do in order to follow after God. And so this is why it's so important that we stop, as God has said, stop what we were doing, and we listen to Him. We listen to Him for what is the next move. So the next portion, is Shalach. Shalach lecha. Oh, I love this. I love this particular Torah portion for many reasons. This is when the spies are sent out. Shalach lecha. And it's taken from Numbers 13th chapter, 1st verse of the 15th chapter, 41st verse. And it says, Ve'yedaber Adonai el Moshe lamor, Shalach lecha anashim ve'yitro et eretz Canaan, asher ani natan lebi Israel, ish echad lemata avotav, tishlahu kol nesi behem. The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Send men to scout the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelite people. Send one man from each of their ancestral tribes, each one a chieftain among them. So Moses, by the Lord's command, sent them out from the wilderness of Paran, all the men being leaders of the Israelites. And we come to a pivotal part in their journey, very important part. So I'm sure we're going to have a lot to say about this particular parsha. Shalach lecha. Okay? And now that we've come to the end, and I think we'll sing, just be, that God will, my prayer this Shabbat is that God will, on this Shabbat, show us where He wants us to go next. That He will give us the instruction, clear instructions, so that we know when He's ready to move. That He will let us know when He's ready to move, so that we can prepare to move with Him. That's my prayer for this Shabbat. And so that in the coming week, He will give us instructions of what we need to do in order to make preparations, in order to follow Him wherever He's going. And that also we remember what He says in verse 23, it's 11:23, where he says, when Moses says all of these things about, you know, we got 600 and some thousand men, and can you give enough meat for a month? And God answers with a question. Is there a limit to the Lord's power? And that's the question. When we think that whatever instruction God gives us to do, when we think we can't do it, we will remind ourselves with this question: is there a limit to the Lord's power?
Well, there's a reason behind that.
Okay.
Answering a question with a question, it makes the questioner think. It
Yes.
forces him to think,
Yes.
as opposed to something being handed to him all the time.
Yes.
You think about it. Say, wait a minute. No, you know, if God can take, I don't know, 600,000 men out of Egypt, of course He can feed them too and give them water.
Yes, He can.
Yeah. Yeah.
If God can create
Yeah.
a universe from nothing,
Yeah.
yes, He can. I believe He can give them.
But that's a good technique. If someone asks you a question, you
answer with a question.
You answer with a question. Yeah.
And so
Very good technique.
we're in our, yes, it's a very good technique. And I think a lot of that's how a lot of the teaching is done by the rabbis, is in order to make your people think. You don't always give them the answer. You give them a question. And that will give them more thoughts and ability to think and maybe work out the solution for themselves.
You have to take time to think.
Exactly. Exactly.
So that, or
Yeah.
Yeah.
so
Give
just
them a
blurt
question.
out something.
Yeah. You give them a question. Is there a limit to the Lord's
Well,
power?
obviously, asking that question, he's thinking, no, God's not is limited. But when God asks him that question, and he thinks, wait a minute, okay.
No, and then he comes back to
I gotta
himself.
think a little bit deeper here.
And he settles down, yes, and you think a little bit deeper. And so that is our theme for the rest of it. Is there a limit to the Lord's power? And I think maybe God gave this to us this time because I believe God is going to ask us to follow Him to places that may look impossible, or to do something that may look impossible in our natural sight. But our question to calm ourselves down is there a limit to the Lord's power? That should be enough for us to calm ourselves down, listen to His instructions, and prepare ourselves to journey on with Him wherever that is. Okay, and so we will stamp that with approval, and we will sing, "Amen." May it be so. May it be so. Amen. 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 One more time. Amen. 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 May it be so, Lord. All right. Well, we pray that you have a wonderful week, and Shabbat Shalom, first of all, and a Shavua Tov.
Shavua Tov.